All right, thank you so much for joining another session of Schools in Lagos training today. It promises to be very, very, very interesting, educative. Has a lot of mapped out topics today. They are really very, very good and relevant to the current situations in the country at the moment. All right, we have a guest speaker in the house and other facilitators. Our guest speaker today is the person of Mrs. Folashade Olotu. She's a great personality that works as a social worker in Dublin. She resides in Dublin. When we talk about social worker, you definitely know that she deals with the children, and our interest is just the children. So we'll be learning from her today on how to be a trauma-informed teacher, not just a teacher, but an educator. Anybody who works in a school environment should benefit from this topic, as it's very important to be a trauma-informed educator. It will help us in a long way. Then we also have other facilitators. Mrs. Folashade Olotu, are you in the house?
Good morning. Thank you very much, Queen. Thank you.
All right, you're most welcome. I'll just run through the other facilitators while I hand over to you to commence.
Yeah, no bother. Thanks.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, so we have other facilitators, great, inspiring facilitators in the house today. We have about 4 of them. One is Mr. Chinedu Okeleke, somebody we all know. He's a renowned IT consultant and instructor, and he's the CEO, MD of Elite Manager Consultancy. He has done greatly with technology, inculcating the ICT into the school system. We have another person in the house. Mr. Chinedu, are you in the house? Say hello.
Hello, everyone. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. We have another person in the house today, Ochuko Prudence Daniel. She's the director, founder of Mama Hills Montessori School. The topic she'll be taking for us today is helping your child stroke pupil develop executive function skills. That topic is really very interesting when we talk about developing the executive function skills. It's not only about the pupils, but also for your child as well. Mrs. Ochuko Prudence Daniels, are you in the house?
She's not here right now. She's getting prepared for the next training. Yeah.
All right, that's fine. Then the next person we have, Mr. Austin Obu. He is an educational consultant and a child art person. He's going to be taking the 3 keys and activities managers for effective classroom management. 3 key stages and activities for effective classroom management. Then we also have Alice Babalola. She's a visionary and a coach with the ATB Inspires. She'll be taking today, the topic she'll be taking is effective teaching strategies. So without much ado, I would say we have so much educative, interesting topics today. Please do well to connect to all of them. Because with the timing, I'm sure it's just a one-way through. You don't need to have to miss out on anyone because you might not need to do a breakout. So I'll be leaving the floor to our guest speaker, our wonderful personality, Mrs. Folashade Olotu.
Thank you very much, Queen. Thanks for the introduction.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to share my screen. I don't know if I have the I think you need to enable me to share the screen, if that's okay.
All right, that's fine. We'll do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Yeah, go ahead now. All right, go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, we can see it very clearly. All right.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so I guess I'll introduce myself. Thank you, Queen, again for introducing me. My name is Folashade Olotu, and I'm a social worker. So I suppose I know you're saying if you hear the word social worker, it's only children. But in this part of the world, it's actually very broad. You can work with adults as well. I've worked with, mental health. I've worked with, families that that are going through domestic violence. I've worked with addiction, people that also, going through addiction issues. I've also worked with children. But I suppose in the line of social work, you'll see how everything intertwine. So like you'll see how I suppose for children, seeing like in their own home, what's going on in the home and how that impacts the kids. You'll see also a different side of the family. Like let's say when I'm working with parents, I see, what's going on for them as well. So technically what I'm trying to say is I've literally seen every aspect of humans and how, our decisions and our actions make us who we are. So yeah, so I'm a social worker. Currently, my experience is with children and also with mental health. So I guess today I'm going to talk about trauma-informed teacher. I'm not a teacher, as you all know, but with the experience I have and with the line of work I do believe that, some of my skills, would be beneficial for teachers because you guys have direct work with children. So I hope this training is insightful, and I hope we're able to learn from it. I do hope as well there are discussions, because what would make us learn from today is actually our discussions. So we need to be able to ask questions. Ask questions. I think can someone unmute their mic? Sorry. So to ask questions, if there's something I'm saying because sometimes I talk really fast. So if you feel like I'm talking maybe too fast, please tell me. I'm not really used to Zoom that much. I don't do training. So this is kind of like my third sort of training. So if I'm talking too fast or maybe you don't understand what I'm saying, just please let me know and then I'll take it a step back.
All right, that's fine. We'll let you know. However, we'll ask the participants to communicate via the chat.
Okay.
So they won't disrupt you.
Yeah, no bother. I do have at a point I'd want people to kind of talk as well because I have discussions. So at that point, I don't mind if people kind of, come in and say stuff as opposed to.
Yeah, they will. They will.
Thanks very much. So I'll start the training. So the aim of this training is, I suppose, to introduce what trauma-informed mean. What's like, I suppose we hear the name trauma all the time. Some people might have heard of it maybe in personal life or on the news, in their, like in the work, just in different aspects of their lives. So this training will define what trauma is, what the role of teachers are in responding, like in being trauma-informed, like what is your role to ensure that you're aware of this practice and how do you, as a teacher, respond to it appropriately. So that would be the aim of, the presentation today. So I suppose my first discussion, as I was saying, is just to get everyone to get to open the chat or to, unmute yourself. When you hear the word trauma, what events or experiences come to mind? Like, what do you think about? I'll be happy if anybody unmute themselves to answer the question. So when you hear the word trauma, like what events or experiences come to mind? Anyone? Let's see, I think. Does anyone want to answer that? I don't bite at all, I can promise you that.
Please, if you have answers, kindly unmute yourself and answer the question. Thank you.
Or you can type your question, or you can type the answer on the chat room. Thank you. Yeah.
And I suppose me asking this is just to understand like what our, experiences and we know what we're talking about.
Hello. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning.
Yeah. I think trauma. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
All right. I'm Samuel Miguel from Lagos.
Nice to meet you. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. I think trauma has to do with, psychological effects of a particular thing on someone. Trauma works within, that is reflected without, that's outside. And so a trauma patient or someone that's been through trauma will be reserved because it has to do with what bothers the person inside, what goes inside. And so it's more of psychological. And so how to, when it is being, seen outside, the person is not, mentally or psychologically stable because of the trauma or the past experience. And so a therapy now will be referred for such person to gain mental stability.
Okay. Thanks very much. Thank you. So I didn't get your name. It says Partner Evolution. So what's your name?
Samuel Miguel.
Oh, Samuel. Okay. Thanks very much. Perfect. So I suppose if anybody, for me, before I started working in this field of work, I don't personally think I've heard the word trauma. I've heard of abuse, I've heard of physical abuse, sexual abuse, you hear abuse, but you don't actually hear trauma. So that's why when I was doing my PowerPoint, I was like, I suppose I want people to know when you hear it, what do you think of? And you're 100% right, Samuel, because that's exactly what trauma is. It's really about what happens on the inside and how that reflects on the outside. So thanks very much for that. So I suppose as a society, as a Nigerian society, as a Nigerian culture, how do we, what kind of responses do we give when we also hear this? And this is very important because we are biases, and the kind of person you are, your experiences in life can define, the kind of responses you give back when you see certain things. Like for me, when I think about Nigerian culture, based on my experience, and being in this part of the world, it's quite transferable because in Nigeria, as much as there is the issues around, the response to trauma, in this part of the world is the exact same thing within the Nigerian community. So it's still a lot of, shame, a lot of not judgments, like what will my family say? What will my friends say? What would the church say? Or so all the responses as part of our culture as well is we need to be aware of that, because that would definitely impact the responses we give back to someone, and also our own biases to ensure that, it doesn't affect someone else's life. So I want us to be thinking about that when I'm going ahead in this presentation. Whatever it is that you think, maybe from personal experience, maybe you've judged people in the past, or maybe you haven't understood why, certain children are doing certain things, instead of you maybe understanding, okay, maybe something's going on for them on the inside, you're more of saying, oh, okay, it's because of this, it's because of that, or they're just spoiled, their parents just did not train them, things like that. So just to have that back of your mind when we're talking about this, because it would definitely impact how you become a trauma-informed teacher. And I suppose I do want this training to be beneficial, to everybody. Okay, so I'll go next. So defining trauma. So trauma is a series of events or exposures to incidents that are emotionally disturbing or life-threatening. And this usually have a lasting adverse effect on the individual's functioning, mental, physical, social, and emotional well-being. So trauma can be physical abuse, it can be sexual abuse, emotional abuse, it can be childhood neglect. You can also be living with a family member that has, mental health. You can also be living in poverty or violence within the community. So I suppose what this is explaining is just to show you what trauma is and how it displays in different aspects of our lives. So psychological trauma is an emotional response to a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. Due to the psychological nature of this, trauma experiences are subjective and are often impacted by our social environment and historical influences. So I suppose what this slide is trying to explain is the way we respond to trauma is different from person to person, and it's down to maybe your environment you're brought up in, your beliefs, your historical influences. So it's not okay to say, maybe if you did not experience it and you say stuff like, oh, I don't understand it because I don't understand what this person is trying to say. So we need to be aware that trauma is very subjective. My trauma can be different from your trauma, but it doesn't, again, take away from the seriousness of how this is impacting the individual, or how this is impacting the decision that they make, or how they display their behavior. So trauma responses are also diverse and multifaceted. As a result, many types of trauma have been identified in an attempt to encompass the wide range of experiences and reaction that people have. So I suppose this slide again is talking about how diverse, how different, trauma can be as well. And that identifying it as well, and the experiences the reaction is different for everybody. So for you might be going through a traumatic experience, or have been through a traumatic experience, and maybe your way of coping is, being at home, maybe going to church, or, praying, or even just, hanging around with friends. Whereas some people can be quite chaotic with, how they respond to trauma. Theirs could be like, they start, drinking excessively, taking drugs, or like, let's say with children, for example, they start displaying certain behaviors in school. Some kids will be very, very shy, and people think, oh, they're just really shy. It's their personality. So I suppose I'm trying to just explain that how, everyone's reaction and how they identify and displays trauma is very different. So it's up to us as teachers, or as, what's up, even in your personal life, to be able to identify this and to ensure that you're meeting the needs of the person that you're, working with. So I guess I'll start from being a child. We're all kids, we're all children before we became adults, right? So I have a video here. I know I sent this to the schools of Lagos. I'm not sure if I'll try to play it. I don't know if it'll work or if you guys can hear it, but if not, I think I'll see if the school can actually play it for me. So just give me a minute.
Yeah, if you can just try and play it from the link, let's see. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. 1 second. Can you hear this?
Yes, we can hear it. Yeah. Very clear.
A child's experiences during the earliest years of life have a lasting impact on the architecture of the developing brain. Genes provide the basic blueprint, but experiences shape the process that determines whether a child's brain will provide a strong or weak foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. During this important period of brain development, billions of brain cells called neurons send electrical signals to communicate with each other. These connections form circuits that become the basic foundation of brain architecture. Circuits and connections proliferate at a rapid pace and are reinforced through repeated use. Our experiences and environment dictate which circuits and connections get more use. Connections that are used more grow stronger and more permanent. Meanwhile, connections that are used less fade away through a normal process called pruning. Well-used circuits create lightning-fast pathways for neural signals to travel across regions of the brain. Simple circuits form first, providing a foundation for more complex circuits to build on later. Through this process, neurons form strong circuits and connections for emotions, motor skills, behavioral control, logic, language, and memory during the early critical period of development. With repeated use, these circuits become more efficient and connect to other areas of the brain more rapidly. While they originate in specific areas of the brain, the circuits are interconnected. You can't have one type of skill without the others to support it. Like building a house, everything is connected, and what comes first forms a foundation for all that comes later.
Okay, great. I know this was probably some of the words I don't understand because I'm not a doctor, so I don't understand some of the language they're using. I'll just take the screen back. But I suppose what the video is trying to explain is how the infant brain adapts to its environment over the first 3 years of their lives. So as children, as much as, they're watching the environment, they're looking at what's going on around them, they might not be able to make sense of it, but their brain is actually adapting to the environment. So I suppose you can understand if a child is in an environment whereby there's ongoing abuse, there's ongoing domestic violence, or there's ongoing, just ongoing, like a very unhealthy home, you can understand how, those 3 years of their life, with the way the brain is set up, it actually affects them then going forward. So experiences help the brain to form connections between our natural section of the brain and areas that control emotion, prediction, and regulations. So babies who have experienced abuse and neglect show different patterns than those who haven't. Children who also have attachment issues, so children, maybe they don't have a good parent. When I say good parent, a good enough parenting, because parenting, as we know, parenting is difficult. So there's no such thing as a perfect parent, but a good enough parenting, that as well impacts a child's cognitive deficits, including their language, their memory, and their sensory. Identifying and recognizing such delays are imperative to any direct work with children. So again, this is how, as teachers, this is why this is important as well, because if we're able to identify, that a child, at this age, this is going on, but we're able to understand, okay, there's more to this, as opposed to, again, using the judgmental approach or the shame approach. So equally important is also, supporting the parents or carers to understand the context of these delays. So I guess this is quite generic, but I try to link it with teachers. Let's say if you're in the school and you have concerns about a child's behavior in the school, how do you inform the parent? What do you say to them? How do you come across like you're being supportive as opposed to being judgmental? All these are very important because it's all part of trauma informed, and it's all part of, ensuring that a child's need is prioritized. So I have a picture here of a normal brain of a 3-year-old and a child that has been through extreme neglect. So I suppose the picture is quite, it's visual enough. You can see the difference, as much as it's happening on the inside, or because we cannot see it, does not mean, it's the brain is not being impacted by this. So if you see the picture of the normal brain that hasn't experienced any sort of trauma or any sort of adversities in life, it shows you the different. And then a child that has been through extreme neglect, abuse, this is how their brain, their brain looks like, rather. So trauma informed care as a teacher, and why is this relevant to us? And this picture really, I'm not sure if you guys know about the saying, the elephant in the room. As big as the elephant is in the room, it can be ignored as well. So the picture really explains, someone that's going through life adversities, and how it doesn't matter how important they are in the room. They could be the loudest in the room, or they might not be the loudest in the room either, or they could also be really, really shy, but they have a big personality. But how it's very easy to still ignore that. So trauma-informed care. So this approach, this method is actually very well known in this part of the world. Like it's been ongoing now, I think, since 2017, based on my research. There's been a lot of psychological approach in the past. I'm sure you guys would have heard of, cognitive behavioral therapy. They have just different type of approaches to respond to children. They'll tell you attachment theory. There's so many. Whereas with this approach or this method, what he's trying to sell or to try and explain is we need to move away from what is wrong with you. Instead of that, we're looking at what happened to you. Because then if you're able to understand what happened to the person from a trauma-informed way, it just changes everything. It changes your lens of how you view people's lives. Even in your personal life, like I personally, when I approach people or approach situations, I'm very trauma-informed as a person anyways. I'm not, I suppose I don't usually point fingers and say, what's wrong with this person? You know, why did this person do this? It's more about what happened to you. And it's not by words, like saying what happened to you, because obviously you can't tell someone what happened to you. It's about really just in your mind, when you're looking at someone, you're not thinking, what is wrong with this person? You're thinking about more of what actually happened to this person to make them react this way, or to respond to life this way, or to, you know, make certain decisions about their life. The trauma-informed approach to care acknowledges that one needs to have a complete picture of a person's life situation, their past and their present, in order to provide effective services. So in that case, for you to be able to be trauma-informed, you need to understand what has happened to this person previously. You know, I'm not sure how the school system works in Nigeria, but let's say in this part of the world, before, for a child to go to, I mean, they go to preschool and they go to, you know, crash and all that, but for them to go to primary school, to go to primary school, they start at the age of 4. So the picture I showed earlier showed like how, you know, within 3 years, you know, how the child brain has been impacted, and how, you know, that 3 years can automatically form who they can become in adulthood. So the point I'm making here is, you as a teacher, you've met a child at the age of 4, for example. If you're a primary school teacher, in some instances, it could be that you met them when, you know, they're in their teens, you know, or maybe when you're in high school or secondary school rather. So to understand how trauma works is you need to get a picture of the person's life. And I'm not saying go and ask, you know, obviously I'm not saying, oh, you ask them what's wrong with you, but it's about, like, you know, which I'll go to into details down the slides, but understanding a complete picture of the person's life and how, you know, this is impacting them. So adopting a trauma-informed practice can potentially also improve one's engagement either through a school setting or their day-to-day lives. So when the teacher or whoever, like professional social workers, you know, any line of work that you're in, or educator, or in your personal life, when you adopt, you know, trauma-informed practices, it will improve the engagement of, you know, the person you're trying to get through, and that would also obviously, you know, support them, and that's, you know, the whole point of being trauma-informed. So these guiding principles for trauma-informed care, it's not exactly, you don't have to go like, you know, it's a will, but you don't have to go like, let's say, safety first. It's just a guide, you know, to show that when you want to become trauma-informed, this is the guide that you need to, you know, go by. It's like your Bible. Like if you Google trauma-informed, the first thing you see is 6 guiding principles, because the whole point of it is trying to tell you that for you to be trauma-informed, or for you to respond in a trauma-informed, this guiding principles is beneficial to know, because in that way it makes things easier to get through to people. So safety, trust, choice, collaboration, empowerment. Like for empowerment, it just really means, you know, empowering the person, like it's their life at the end of the day, and they've lived their life, you know, but you have to empower them to, you know, speak out, see what's going on for them, you know, how you can help, how you can support them. And for them to also, you know, for you to feel like you need to empower them, they need to feel safe, you know, you need to be able to, they need to feel safe to talk to, you know, the teacher. They need to feel like they can trust the teacher. And not trust without boundaries, that trust with boundaries, you know, so whereby you can, you know, the child knows that you're trying to get through to them, so they know that they can trust you with, you know, whatever it is that's going on for them, without, again, judgment, shame, pointing fingers, you know, and all that other stuff that comes with it. So I guess for the reason why you guys are all here is because you're all educators and you're teachers. So like, why is this relevant as a teacher, and why do we need to know this, you know? So I suppose children tend to spend a lot of time in the school, and the different behaviors will be observed in the school setting, you know. So you like, as teachers and as educators, you work with different type of children, different backgrounds, you know, different life experiences, and they're all in one room, you know. So you can imagine all that personality in one room, and how do you, you know, how do you respond to everybody? And you have to understand that as teachers, and also even in any line of work that, you know, that has direct work with children, the ones that are not, that causing trouble the most, or the ones that are not causing trouble at all are sometimes the ones that, you know, attention needs to be paid to. I'm not saying, you know, that that's 100%, obviously, but as teachers or as educators or what any line of work that it is with children, you know, it's very easy to work with the ones that are, you know, perfect. They come to school, they'll tell you, good morning, teacher, you know, they do their homework. They, you know, they are just perfect children. You know, everybody wants that, you know, just as much as in your personal life, nobody wants any disruptive children. But the ones that are not responding that way are the ones that a lot of focus needs to be on, because those are the ones that are trying to pass a message across, and no one is getting through to them. So what tends to happen is either, you know, they get into trouble, they get suspended, they get expelled, or, you know, whatever it is. You get me? So it just shows you that those are the kids that we need to observe, and that's why it's relevant. So for some students or for some kids, the school is seen as a safe space. So you can imagine, like, let's say as a child, and sometimes as well, I always tell people to try and put themselves in, you know, in a child's situation. We've all been kids before, and, you know, through maybe life adversities and our experiences, you know, we've experienced what maybe certain things in the home. So for some kids, leaving the house and coming to school is actually a safe space for them. They're happy that they're away from what is going on in the house. They're happy that, you know, they have a runaway. And what we don't want is, as teachers, we're now actually making that environment toxic, or, you know, adding more trauma to their life, if that makes sense. So just to be, I suppose this again is relevant to teachers, because then if you understand that, it makes your approach will be more you'll ensure that your approach is suitable for the kids, and ensure that the environment that they come into is seen as a safe space. A child doesn't want to come and I'm like, oh, what teacher do we have today, for example? Oh, she's so mean, she's always picking on me, you know, things like that. So just to be aware of that, and how a teacher responds to a student will determine the support that will be provided and would allow the child to be seen. So being seen as a child does not necessarily mean, you know, seen in a negative light. But when a teacher can see a child for who they are and what they've been through, it really just screams trauma informed, because now a child feels like somebody actually understands me. It doesn't necessarily mean, again, there are boundaries, because I know there's been a lot of conversations, you know, over the course of, you know, talking about trauma, and teachers having to, like, where do you cut, where do you cross the line, you know, what are the boundaries in this sense? So like for teachers, it's about, you know, ensuring that the child is seen, and the child being seen can be as simple as, you know, saying, okay, so yesterday you're in a good form, or, you know, however it is that you respond to children, but today you seem like something's going on. Are you okay? You know, it's as simple as that. Even if the child says, I'm fine, that's okay. But just be aware, just be consistent, because then that will determine, you know, the safe space we're talking about. It will determine the trust, that the guiding principle I was talking about. It will determine the trust. It will determine the empowerment, because now you're giving a child the opportunity to tell you what has happened to them and what is going on for them as well. Also, it's relevant to teachers, because a student's well-being, their relationships, the academic performance, and school involvement may suffer if a teacher uses a punitive approach when a particular behavior is displayed. So this means, like, as obviously everyone that goes to school wants to get all straight A's. You know, nobody wants to fail. But you do have students, you know, as I'm sure you've been in the school settings, that are not getting straight A's. So it's easy for a teacher to not be punitive and, you know, use punishment, or, you know, I even ask parents, and again, for parents that are also in the room, this is also a good way to also, you know, use this approach for your children as well. It's easy to be punitive. It's very easy to give out. It's very easy to give out. It's very easy to, you know, punish them. Really, that's exactly what punitive is trying to say. But we need to be able to then understand the behavior and why is this happening, because then that would automatically then build the relationship. The performance in school would also, you know, improve as well, and anything else that, you know, that we're concerned about. So also understanding a child through their lens is an important aspect of trauma-informed teaching, and it is critical that we incorporate that into our work to ensure the child's safety. So again, I think I talked about the child feeling like she's seen or he's seen, and that's also understanding them through their own lens, not through your lens, not through what you think their lens should be, not through what you feel that they should be doing or not be doing. It's about seeing it through what is going on for them and looking at the bigger picture. And I know I suppose I know that I've said this a few times, but because this is what trauma-informed means, it's about understanding the person's life as a whole, not the person's life as how they present to you in school, not the person's life as how they present to their parents at home, but as a whole, what's going on for them, what's going on in the home, like just a full picture of the child, because then that would determine how they would respond, and also they'll feel safe as well. So this is just I'm sure, I don't think you can see the top parts, but just strategies to use in the classroom. My approach, my conversation or my discussion since I started is about like the child, because it's very important. But like in the classroom, what strategies can teachers use to be able to be aware, to be trauma informed, like to be informed, or to be aware of what's going on? So we have to look beyond the behavior. Like the behavior that they're shown is just it's like they're acting. So a child displaying certain behavior isn't because they just wake up that day and they want to display that behavior. Do you get me? It's because they're trying to tell you something. They're trying to they're trying to tell you something. So research has shown that traumatic experiences alter the brain and can affect children socially, emotionally, behaviorally, and academically. This shapes the child and may make kids appear angry, depressed, uncooperative, or distracted. When you adopt a trauma-informed perspective, you approach the child's behavior with an openness and curiosity. Instead of thinking, again, what is wrong with you, you adopt a trauma-informed model to what happened to you. So like for children, when they start appearing angry, uncooperative, distracted, the general behavior that we see, we need to be open to try and understand it, be curious, to be able to say, okay, actually, what is actually happened to this child and why is this happening? So looking beyond the behavior, that is a strategy in the class setting. Build relationships. So I suppose relationships are the vehicle to recovery in trauma-informed. So children who have experienced trauma require a strong and rich relationship with their teacher, and which would help them form the foundation of resilience. The better you know the students, the better you can teach them. So building relationship, again, there's boundary. When I say relationship, I mean teacher to a child relationship and the boundaries that that encompass that. So it's very important to know the child you're working with. Everybody's different. It's like being a parent as well. You cannot, research has shown that you can't use the same approach on each child because it's not going to work. And the same way as when we were children as well, it shows you how different personality, maybe if you have a sibling, how you're different to your sibling, or how you're different to your sister or your brother, where everyone is different and everybody comes with different personality. So just to know the student, and if you're aware of who they are, it shows, it's better than you can teach. It would give you a better insight to how you can also teach them. So creating a safe environment, this is like the Bible. I've said safe environments like 1 million times already throughout my discussion here, because it's very important. It's very critical, in making your student feel welcome in the classroom. Student feeling secure and connected in the classrooms create an environment where a child will thrive and learn. So a safe environment is very important, because if a child feels safe, if they're living in a home whereby it's toxic and and it's very, very chaotic, they want to feel safe in the school that they're coming into. So having that, would allow the child to, feel connected, secure, and the academic performance that we're concerned about, it'll change automatically, because the child now feels like, I feel safe here and I'm able to, reach my full potential. So to meet students also where they're at, again, this is back to being the old lens thing. As teachers, we may or might have come across students who are disruptive in class. This again could be that they observe maybe their parents fighting that morning. Teachers can then meet the child where they're at by even checking in on them that morning. So meet your children where they're at. There's no point of you saying, this other girl in the class is doing better than you. What is wrong with you? You know, again, using the punitive approach or using the judgment approach or the shame approach, it's not going to work. What is going on for that child? And how do you meet them to ensure that you are responding to them, you know, in the way that they should be responded to, if that makes sense. And accountability. So trauma-informed care practitioners should be aware of the possible re-traumatization, even if this is unintentional. When this occurs, a trauma-informed care professionals take responsibility for repairing the relationship and exploring with the students safer ways for them to be in a therapeutic space. So this, I suppose, it's about taking being accountable. You know, as humans, not even being a teacher, as humans, mistakes happen. You know, there could be a day where you're also having a bad day. You come into the school and your approach is very, very abrupt, you know, and you're very straight to the point. Or it could be that the child has already built that safe space with you, and then all of a sudden it changes. It's about being aware of that and how, you know, sometimes it's unintentional, but you being accountable and actually trying to repair that relationship. Let the children know as well that we're all humans, you know. This is not again about the whole hierarchy of respect. This is just really about be accountable of, okay, this is what I've done wrong, and try and just reflect on it and model what you want your student to be. You know, you need to also model that. So there's no point of you're having a good day, tomorrow you're having a bad day. You know, so if you're allowed to do that, students are watching the environment. They're thinking, okay, if Mr. Sam is doing this, that means I can do that too. You know, so model what it is that you want the students in the class to model back to you. Okay. So I suppose there'll be a discussion now if you want to unmute your mic. So in light of what you've learned today, can you share any instances? And I suppose this slide is just to get people to give an experience of being in class, how a child maybe have demonstrated a certain behavior and how you responded. And with that, now what would you do differently now that you're aware about trauma? Like how would you respond differently? So I'd really like if anybody can answer that or discuss it just so it shows that we've learned something today, because we would have come across different children over our years of working with kids, and you would have seen a particular child that's maybe ringing in your ears, and you're like, this child, now that you know what you've learned today, what can you share, that the child demonstrated, and now that you're trauma informed, like how can you deal with this differently next time when it happens again? So if you can unmute yourself, that'd be great. Or you can use the chat room as well.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, thank you, Sam, again.
Yeah. Actually, I have learned a lot about trauma, and it hasn't really been easy because and you have decades and meeting different kind of children, different kind of learners, and trying to manage them hasn't really been easy. And one underlying factor is that trauma is that thing they face from home, and going out, they are feeling relieved. But when it's time to go back home, they're like, gosh, am I going into this hell? I used to have a particular learner, and this child, in fact, comes very early to school, even earlier than myself. And when I meet her, like, you are very early, I will always come early because I prepare on time and leave the house. I didn't just get the message at first. So I try watching her. She's always early. And once it's closing time to go home, she still loiter around and come around like, teacher, do you have any work I will help you do? I was like, just go home. The school has closed, and, she was still one. And one day I called her, like, I noticed you come very early and you are not even willing to go home. What could be the problem? Is there anything? I saw her, she comes with her food normal. It's not as if she's being starved and other things. I tried. But she said her father is always mean. And because of that, she's not comfortable at home. Like if she gets home now, it's not as if there's a particular attention on her education or academics. The man will always want her to do a lot of work at home. I asked, are you the only child? She said no, but she's the first. And so there's this workload on her shoulder, like you have to do this, you have to wash dishes, sweep the house, a whole lot of work. And I try to understand. So what time do you have to do your assignment? She does her assignment anything past 9, 10, 11, depending on the volume of the assignment. So she does the assignment after the whole work must have been done. And she walk herself out. And most times when you don't, it's difficult to please her dad. If you don't do it, and her mom is the shy type that the man always, control. These men that, you are a woman, you don't talk. I control my family the way I want it and things. So her mother couldn't help the situation. And I saw that it's always telling on her. Each time it's time to go home, she's scared of going back to that house. Like, what will I face? I don't really know what I'm going to get in terms of beating. And when she doesn't do it well, the man will spank her, beat her, at times cane marks. I saw that this is actually child abuse. This girl is traumatized. She cannot even concentrate. When she's in school, she's like, oh, I'm at home. She feels so relaxed, so calm. There's nothing you do to her to just leave school that she's going home for weekend is like 2 days in hell. In fact, I tried, when it was time for PTA open day, the man came around, I tried to, but the man was like, so she has been reporting me to you, and this and that. I had to just report the case to the management so that they will know a better way to handle it. And after the whole thing, we had to call on the man that what you are doing, you are traumatizing this girl, she's not feeling comfortable. Home should be the safest place ever. But it's no longer safe for her because of, the hand is too much. Say, you need to monitor her. She's a girl child. If I don't monitor her, she will go haywire. But you are making her scared. If not that she was able to confide in me, if she sees an avenue to run away, she can run away from home. So that's not actually the way to handle. With this training, I've really known when I go back now, I think I know the avenue I will really assist her. The man is showing up, trying to, calm down, but she's not really feeling secured. I'll have to help her gain her confidence back, that she can feel better. If there's anything, I try finding out if there's any molestation. There is none, but it's just that, unsafe environment for her. Like, I don't know what to expect. It may be a severe beating, at times starvation, just for her to be punished and all those things. So I think I've learned how to actually help her in that area to see that she gained that mental stability and for her to calm her fears, because somehow that thing has started affecting her academics wise and in her work. When she doesn't have, at times she'll be doing the homework, she'll sleep off. Or for her to wake up the next morning, the homework is incomplete. And so there's no how she can concentrate more on her studies with those things. Trauma is really an issue. In fact, with this training, my horizon has been opened and I see that she really needs help. And I will know how to work on her to see that that will not affect her in the future. Yes. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Thank you. Like, your example is a perfect, explanation of how trauma is displayed in school setting. Of course, I think at the beginning you're talking about how, a home should be a safe space, but in most instances, for a lot of people, it's not a safe space, but we cannot control as teachers or as a person, we can't control what goes on at home. In this, and I think that's where in Nigeria, why there needs to be a lot of more policies on child protection and all that, but that's a different conversation entirely, because let's say in this part of the world, the perfect example you've given there is an example of child abuse. Social workers would be on that man's door the next day to try and ensure that child is safe. We don't have that in Nigeria. So it's like, now that the policies and the government does not allow us to, respond in a certain way that would like to, how do you now as a teacher ensure that the child being in the school setting is safe enough? And that's all you can do. You can't really control if the child leaves the house, the school now, and goes home. We can't control that. But what we can control is that when the child is in school, the child feels seen. We're able to understand the child from their own lens, and ensure. And it's not about giving the child extra, like going all like, are you okay today? Are you, it's not even about all that. It's about, making sure that while the child is there, even if it's a matter of just checking in every day, little things like that, you might not understand how that will go a long way.
Of course.
The child might still go home to that parent, but the child will always remember that this teacher has made me feel safe. This teacher has made me feel like I'm not what I'm being addressed as being in the house. Do you know what I mean? And that is, again, trauma informed. If you don't understand it, you can't know the best way to approach it. Do you know what I mean? So definitely the way you've handled that is excellent, but again, we can't control. Trauma informed, as I suppose, never kind of discuss what we can control in the home, because once it's 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock or whatever time it is that you finish work, you're gone home. You have your own personal life that you need to handle as well. But while that child is within and in and around you, the child that feels seen, just even feeling seen enough is okay. It's not okay. It's part of it, I mean, like, it's part of the child feeling like, okay, I'm worthy, I'm this, she sees me. And you hear a lot of stories, like, about, adults now, they'll tell you there was a particular teacher that just understood me. And that's exactly what we are trying to do here. Trying to understand the child, trying to know that we can see you and we can hear you and understand you. And you took the right approach, even going to management. Even went as far as speaking to the father. That is a big step. Some people wouldn't even go that far, like to speak to the father, but that shows how passionate you were.
Sorry, please, we have about just a minute more. Just a minute more. Yeah. To run up with the class. Yeah, just a minute more. All right, thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Hello? Yeah, just a minute more to round up the class.
No better. Okay, yeah. So perfect. Thank you so much. That was a perfect example, and I hope everyone else in the class are able to reflect on their own teaching and how they can impact the child's life as well. Thanks very much.
Yeah, welcome.
So the last slide. So my last slide is really just on self-care. Again, I've talked about, ensuring the child is safe, ensuring this, ensuring that. You need to also look after yourself. There's a lot of other, sometimes when you see a child, it's triggering a part of your own life that, you don't realize that it should be, so you need to look after yourself. You need to know when to, get help. You need to know when you need to, whatever way it is that makes you feel, that gives you that therapeutical space, even if it's, some people it's through spiritual setting, like going to a mosque or church, and some people it's about speaking to a friend, some people is by going to therapy, whatever it is that works for you, to ensure that your self-care is very, because you can't help somebody if you haven't helped yourself. You can't be all about solving someone else's problem when you yourself, your self-care is zero. So we need to be very mindful of that as well. Trauma is very, very deeper than it is. It's very psychological, it's mental, it's draining, so look after yourself and ensure that while you're doing that, it automatically will be easier then to help somebody else out as well. So that's my slide. So if there's any other questions, I know I don't have any more time, but if, everyone is happy with it, I'm happy to, end it here. But,
sorry. All right. Thank you so much. Miss Margie, she has a question to ask quickly. Yeah.
Yes, quickly, please. Yeah, good morning. Thank you for the section. I've learned a lot, but I want to ask quickly, a quick one. Is it every awful behavior displayed by a child that is trauma related?
Okay.
Thank you.
Based on research, like a child, depending on the age of the child, most behaviors, you can't always say 100%, but most behaviors is related to something that the child has been through. And if you remember when I spoke earlier, I was talking about, you might not see it as trauma, but it's trauma to the child. A child not even getting a simple of maybe, I love you in the morning by the parents, but somebody else, that's nothing, but it's just, the whole point of trauma is just to say, understanding what is going on for the child. It can be very, very simple, and how to now support that child within that. But yes, it might not be hard, but I believe, and based on research, yes, most disruptive behavior, most concerns around the child displaying certain behavior, it is linked to, abuse, or is linked to trauma, definitely, because a child is only what they know and what they see, And again, it could be, I've worked with, just to give a quick example, I've worked with people within my experience. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me properly, but I've worked with people within my experience, and the child is an adult now, and he's in severe addiction. You know, he has heroin addiction and cocaine and all that. When I look at him compared to his other peers that I've worked with, what makes him stand out was he was brought up in a healthy home. But you know what makes his own trauma different? His own trauma was the fact that his both parents were never there for him because they were always working. Somebody else could be like, my parents were at home, but they were abusive. So the point I'm making is, I was shocked with that, because that was like an eye opener, because I'm like, okay, so you had both parents that were working class, 9 to 5s. They provided a safe home for you. They provided this for you. But because they weren't home for the child, he started displaying and started looking for something else outside. And that's why he ended up, in addiction. So yes, every trauma is personal. Everybody's trauma is subjective. So it is very, very true that, yes, most, I don't want to say 100% because I don't have that number, and I haven't done my research to that level, so I can't really say 100%, but most behaviors is a reflection of, yes, something that gone wrong. And again, it doesn't have to always be physical abuse, it doesn't have to be sexual abuse, it doesn't have to be the abuse that we're thinking about, but something definitely has impacted the child to feel like, they need to display that behavior. So I hope that answers your question, Mrs. Maggie.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mrs. Folashade Olotu. Thank you for this section. We sincerely appreciate every lesson that we have learned today. So all right, we're about to start the second section now. So please, everyone, you can go back to the WhatsApp link, and so that you can click on the link to get through to the second section. Thank you all for your time. Thank you, Ms. Folashade Olotu. We've sincerely learned a lot today. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Right. Yeah, bye.